The heart is like a bomb, full of love and ready to explode. And then she says, and yoga is the detonator. And then she goes, downward facing dog. And it was just like, like my whole, like literally, I felt like my heart exploded.
Hi, Vajra Luz and Vajra Luz community. We're here. It's the Lionsgate portal. We've been working on vajraluz.com for the last several months. And this is something that we've been wanting to incorporate from the beginning. So it's finally here. I'm excited to sit down and talk with you. I want to be able to share with your community some of my perspectives of you and your wonderfulness as a resource. And I want you to be able to share with us all the things that you've been working on and what you're excited to bring forth in this next chapter of your life.
Well, thank you so much first for all of your assistance and support over this time. And I'm also very delighted to be able to have this time with you in order to communicate from my heart and from this inspired place that I find myself in, what it is that has been coming to shape in my life, in my sphere, over many years of study and practice of yoga and meditation and breath work and ashram life and teaching and being a student. And this this moment, everything has really fully come together to become what is going to be shared and revealed in vajraluz.com, my new website. And yeah, it's an honor, it's a privilege, and it's just a really exciting moment in my life that I really am so happy to share with whoever it is that's watching this. So thank you again for being here, and thank you for your support, and thank you in advance for all that you're going to offer me by means of questions that are going to probably awaken in my mind some aspect of reflection and reference for where it is that I am and what I've learned and how far I've come and how far I have to go. And I
Right.
mean, all like a kind of a full circle retrospective.
Right. That's kind of how this started too. I started to ask you questions, and then you were saying, Danielle, you asked me such great questions. Maybe we can do this interview. I could say that I have a very unique perspective on your journey through yoga because growing up, I was around when you started with yoga. I've done yoga with you, I've gone on different yoga experiences with you. And as our relationship has grown over the years, we've delved more into the consciousness side of things. And even working on this project, we've been able to kind of um, share perspectives. And I really have learned so much just chatting with you. And I think that there's just a lot to be shared and discussed here. So hopefully your community gets a lot out of it as I do. But that is just kind of my explanation for how I could fit into this conversation. I've definitely seen your journey through yoga, and there's parts of it that I haven't been present for that we can probably get into today, which I'm interested to do.
I think your perspective is fabulous because I've known you since you were born. You've known me your entire life, but there are moments where we haven't necessarily been in touch or been together. And in those moments, we both grow in unspeakable ways. And so it's good to kind of connect the dots, right? And from there, I think the conversation will flow very naturally as it has been. So yeah, you're the perfect cousin for the job.
Yes, I am. And since we're already talking origins, we'll start with the questions, which kind of start to your origins in yoga. Um,
Mhm.
I'm interested and curious if you always gravitated towards the consciousness aspect, the mind, body, soul aspect of yoga, because I do recall you framing it to me that way when you first introduced it to me.
I feel that when probably the moment when I came around really excited about yoga, this aspect of consciousness was awakened in me through yoga. But I had a whole period of time before that, probably at least let's say 10 years, because when I went to college, I took a yoga class that I actually like absolutely hated. I think I told you this story before, but I'll say it because it's interesting. I took this yoga class in college, and it was really early in the morning and very slow. My body was very tight. I was not healthy at all, drinking very heavily as a freshman in college. And I actually quit the class. Like I dropped the class at the last moment you can drop it. It was a pass fail class. Like all you had to do was show up, and like I couldn't even manage that because I really like I just did not think that yoga was at all for me. And so, I mean, that was like 10 years probably before, maybe a little bit less, maybe 8 years before I actually found a yoga class and a yoga teacher that I really connected with. In those 10 years, I mostly did yoga for sport. I did some core yoga classes at a gym when I lived in New York City. I did some kind of power flow when I was still in college. I did go back a couple times to a studio in Washington, D.C. And I just kind of dabbled in and out. I can't really answer the question of why it is that I kept going back to yoga in these little ways, but um, it wasn't until I came to LA and I found a regular class that I could afford with a teacher that I liked that something was awakened in me that had offered me insight into the deeper integration aspects of yoga into one's life. And really, it was this idea of yoga being a metaphor of how one can live their lives through the what the practice is, what is being reflected in the practice on the mat, and then taking that practice off the mat and into the world. And I remember that my teacher at that time, her name is Tara Judell. She still teaches now, mostly in Europe, I think. She has a practice called embodied flow. But back then we were doing Anusara yoga, which is a very beautiful kind of yoga that has had its own moment of transition through time. And I remember that she said this one day, the heart is like a bomb full of love and ready to explode. And then she says, and yoga is the detonator. And then she goes, downward facing dog. And it was just like my whole, like literally, I felt like my heart exploded. And at that moment, I understood something about it, I understood something. I didn't know what it was then. And even now, it must have been about that moment of stillness, that moment of connecting to one's heart, right? And the moment of understanding that the practice is all about your heart, right? It's all about putting your heart fully into the practice, right? That's what being present is about, right? That's what integration is about. That's what embodied flow is about. That's what being a spirit in a human body, recognizing and understanding your essence and moving from that space is about. And that's yoga. So I hope that answers your question about whether consciousness was what called me to yoga. No, and then yes.
There's levels to it.
Everything has a moment, its own moment in time, right? Just like everything has levels, there is the moment when you are ripe and ready for whatever it is that you're that is wanting, that is asking to be integrated. And usually once you do it, you're like, ah, it's like an aha moment, right? Oh, that's what that is about. But until then, you kind of like, you don't really know why you're doing what you're doing sometimes, right? Or you're definitely, you don't want to do that. And then all of a sudden you find yourself. I had a student recently, a friend of mine who said, I hated yoga. He said, I definitely didn't want to do that. And then all of a sudden, a neighbor of his said, do you want to go to this yoga class? He said, I have no idea why. I said, yes. And then I came to your class and all of a sudden it made sense. But I had actively avoided yoga for about 10 years. Not
Wow.
me, him. And then he became a student of mine, right? And we began this deeper exploration of what yoga as a lifestyle practice can offer in the traditional style of Patanjali, there are 8 limbs of yoga, and one of them is asana. Asana is a Sanskrit word that means seat, that we use to mean posture. And this is just one aspect, right? There's also pranayama, which is breathing exercises, which I also teach. There are kind of, I would say, 3 ways to describe meditation, but it's like concentration, the withdrawal of the senses, and meditation, dharana, dhyana, and pratyahara. And then there's 2 limbs that are about living, righteous living, internally and externally, your relationship to yourself, and then your relationship to the external world. This is where something like ahimsa comes from, nonviolence. And then the final limb of yoga is samadhi, which is complete and total absorption in the absolute, the fullest and completest integration that one can achieve in a human body. So asana yoga is, or the physical aspect of yoga being just one aspect, but in this day and age being something that we heavily identify with, being a physical body. And so the physical practice, as it did for me, being what can lead us deeper into an internal practice, something like meditation, something like breath work bridges those two. Then you may become interested in living more righteously, internally and externally, all the different stages of meditation will come together in a moment, and then you'll be absorbed into the bliss of samadhi, maybe for a moment, maybe permanent. There are 2 kinds of samadhi, but this is the practice of yoga, and any of those stages can come first, right? For me it was asana yoga, but for someone else it can be one of the meditations, or for someone it can be breath work, right? all of the all of the paths converge in the same space of an infinite consciousness, and how you get there is really up to your soul's destiny and design and journey and purpose.
Did they say that in your freshman yoga class?
Nobody explained that to me. I had to find that out myself. But it's certainly explained in many like books and through many other teachers, and I just am reiterating what it is that I have learned both externally and internally. But the point also is that you can't really speak to something that you haven't fully integrated. I mean, you can speak to it, but until you fully integrated it, and I'm still working on that, uh, it just doesn't come out as good. It's an in process, right? And we're all in process. I am still in process. I'm still refining, which is why I would even say you can't take anything that I say today as like or for certain, right? Because I'm always constantly refining myself, refining my practice, looking deeper,